The Young and the Restless spoilers. Kane and Billy testify against Phyllis, Christine's offer they can't refuse. Young and the Restless, Y&R, spoilers reveal that Kane Ashby, Billy Flynn, and Billy Abbott, Jason Thompson, could land in some trouble if Phyllis Summers, Michelle Stafford, digs her heels in on this whole situation with Victor Newman, Eric Braeden, and Victoria Newman, Amelia Heinley. Phyllis isn't the only one who could face criminal charges if she doesn't return the Newman empire like Victor is demanding. Victor's new AI program has fabricated emails and documents to prove that Phyllis conspired to steal his company. There's manufactured evidence that involves Kane and Billy, which means there's a lot at stake for them. 2N1's April 24 episode, Michael Baldwin, Christian LeBlanc, warned Phyllis about the potential for her to face prison time. Especially since the Newmans have rounded up a bunch of division heads who are willing to testify against her. Michael also pointed out that if Christine Blair Romalotti, Laura Lee Bell, offers Billy or Kane a deal to testify against Phyllis, it's doubtful that they'll turn her down. That's especially true since Kane and Billy aren't too happy with Phyllis after what she did to them. Phyllis chloroformed Kane and stole Newman Enterprises from him, which ruined his plan to get Lily Winters, Crystal Khalil, and the twins back from Victor. Kane now knows Lily, Mattie Ashby, last played by Lexi Stevenson, and Charlie Ashby, last played by Noah Alexander Jerry, were never in real danger, but that doesn't change Phyllis' betrayal. Billy also lost Chancellor thanks to Phyllis, who signed it over to Victor without realizing Jack Abbott, Peter Bergman, had already been rescued. That was a tough blow for Billy since controlling Chancellor again had been his dream for so long. In other words, Kane and Billy will have double the motivation to testify against Phyllis if the case gets that far. In addition to saving themselves, they could get back at Phyllis for her treatment of them. Will Michael's fear about Christine striking deals with Billy and Kane be proven right? Will Kane and Billy be more than willing to help take Phyllis down? The Young and the Restless spoilers say Phyllis' mess will get even messier in the coming episodes, so stick with us for any stunning news to come as the storm surrounding Phyllis intensifies. The pressure becomes almost unbearable, but she refuses to let fear control her next move because she knows that once she shows weakness, Victor Newman wins completely, and that is something she simply cannot allow no matter how dangerous the situation becomes. So instead of retreating, Phyllis starts thinking more strategically than ever before, carefully analyzing every piece of so-called evidence that has been presented against her, looking for cracks, inconsistencies, anything that could prove that this entire setup is nothing more than an elaborate manipulation designed to destroy her reputation and take her out of the game permanently while Victor regains full control of everything he believes belongs to him. And as she dives deeper into this mental battle, she begins to realize that the timing of everything is just too perfect to be real, which only strengthens her suspicion that artificial intelligence has been used not just as a tool but as a weapon in this dangerous corporate war. Meanwhile, across town, Kane Ashby is dealing with his own internal conflict because even though he now understands that his family was never truly in danger, the emotional damage caused by Phyllis' actions still lingers heavily on his mind and refuses to fade away. He replays every moment, every lie, every manipulation, and the more he thinks about it the harder it becomes to justify standing by her side, especially when his own future could be at risk if he chooses loyalty over logic. At the same time, Billy Abbott is going through a similar but even more intense struggle because losing Chancellor was not just about business, it was about reclaiming a part of himself that he had lost for years, and now that opportunity has been ripped away once again, leaving him frustrated, angry, and more vulnerable than he would ever admit out loud. He tries to maintain control on the surface, but those closest to him can see the cracks forming, and they know that it is only a matter of time before Billy is forced to make a decision that could change everything. As the legal tension grows, Christine Blair quietly positions herself as the key player in this unfolding drama because she understands that the strongest cases are not built on evidence alone but on people and their willingness to speak. She knows that Kane and Billy are the missing pieces that could seal Phyllis' fate, and she is fully prepared to offer them exactly what they need to secure their cooperation, whether that means protection, reduced consequences, or a complete legal escape from the situation. When the possibility of a deal is finally placed in front of them, it creates a moment of silence that carries more weight than any words could express. Because both men understand that accepting such an offer would not only protect them but also directly contribute to Phyllis' downfall, At this point, loyalty becomes a complicated concept because it is no longer just about right or wrong, it is about survival, and while Kane struggles with the emotional side of the decision, Billy begins to lean more toward self-preservation as his frustration with Phyllis continues to grow stronger. Back on her side, Phyllis begins to sense that something is shifting around her because the energy has changed. People who once stood firmly beside her are now hesitant, distant, and careful with their words, which only confirms her fear that she is running out of time. Instead of panicking, she channels that fear into focus and begins working faster, digging deeper and pushing harder to uncover the truth before it is too late. She starts connecting dots that others have overlooked, and slowly a pattern begins to emerge. One that suggests that Victor's so-called evidence may have been engineered with precision using advanced technology that blurs the line between reality and fabrication. This realization gives her a new sense of urgency because if she can prove that the evidence is fake, then everything changes instantly. But proving something like that is not easy, especially when she is up against someone as P. Without hesitation, trusting his judgment completely, even as whispers of doubt begin to spread among others who are starting to question whether this battle has gone too far. Because if it is ever proven that the evidence was fabricated, then the consequences could be devastating, not just for Victor but for everyone involved in executing the plan. As the situation becomes more intense, the lines between right and wrong begin to blur, and each character is forced to confront their own values and priorities in a way they never have before. Kane finds himself caught between his anger and his conscience, unsure of which path will allow him to live with himself once everything is over, while Billy edges closer to a decision that could define his future, knowing that whatever choice he makes, there will be no turning back. Christine prepares to make her final move, confident that she has positioned everything perfectly, but even she knows that in a case like this there is always the possibility of an unexpected twist that could change everything in an instant, and that twist may already be in motion because unknown to most there are still hidden layers to this story, secrets that have not yet been revealed and truths that are waiting for the right moment to come to light. Phyllis continues her fight, refusing to give up even when the odds are stacked against her, because she understands that as long as there is even a small chance to prove her innocence, she has to take it. She begins to take bigger risks, stepping into dangerous territory where one wrong move could cost her everything, but at this point playing it safe is no longer an option. As the clock ticks down and the pressure reaches its peak, the stage is set for a confrontation unlike anything Genoa City has seen before, where alliances will be tested, betrayals will be exposed, and the true power of manipulation will finally be revealed. In the end, the question is no longer just about who is right or who is wrong, but about who is willing to go the furthest to win and who will ultimately pay the highest price for the choices they have made. Because in this game of power, control, and deception, there are no easy victories and no guaranteed survivors, only consequences that will echo long after the battle is over. And just when it seems like the truth is about to surface, a shocking revelation begins to unfold, one that has the potential to turn everything upside down and force everyone to reconsider what they thought they knew, leaving the fate of Phyllis hanging by a thread as the story moves toward its most explosive chapter yet, where nothing will ever be the same again, and the final outcome will leave a lasting impact on every single person involved, whether they are ready for it or not. As the shocking revelation begins to ripple through Genoa City, the fragile balance of power starts to shift in ways no one fully anticipated. And for Phyllis, this moment becomes both a risk and an opportunity. Because while the truth inching closer to the surface could clear her name, it could also expose just how dangerous the game has truly become. Yet instead of hesitating, she leans into the chaos, knowing that hesitation is exactly what Victor is counting on. So she pushes forward with a renewed sense of purpose, determined to uncover the final piece of the puzzle no matter the cost. At the same time, whispers begin to circulate that someone within Victor's inner circle may not be as loyal as they appear, and this possibility alone is enough to create cracks in what once seemed like an unbreakable strategy, because if even one person turns against Victor, the entire foundation of his plan could start to collapse under its own weight. Meanwhile, Kane Ashby finds himself unable to ignore the growing doubt in his mind, because the more he reflects on the situation, the more he realizes that something about the evidence does not add up. It feels too clean, too perfectly constructed, as if it was designed not to reveal the truth but to control it. And this realization forces him to reconsider everything he thought he knew about Phyllis' actions. While he is still hurt and angry, there is now a part of him that questions whether she is truly guilty or simply another piece in a much larger scheme. Billy Abbott, on the other hand, continues to struggle with his emotions, but his approach begins to change as he starts focusing less on revenge and more on understanding the bigger picture, because Deep down he knows that if Victor is capable of fabricating evidence against Phyllis, then no one is truly safe, not even him. This thought alone is enough to slow him down and make him reconsider accepting any kind of deal without fully understanding the consequences. As Christine Blair prepares to finalize her case, she senses the shift happening beneath the surface and realizes that time is no longer on her side because the stronger Phyllis' counterargument becomes the weaker her position could get. So she begins applying pressure more aggressively, pushing Kane and Billy toward a decision before they have the chance to change their minds completely. The tension between all parties continues to rise as conversations become more intense and the stakes grow higher with every passing moment. Phyllis, meanwhile, takes a bold step by attempting to trace the origin of the fabricated data, believing that if she can expose how the evidence was created, she can dismantle the entire case against her in one decisive move. But doing so requires access to information that is heavily protected, forcing her to rely on instincts, strategy, and a willingness to take risks that others would never consider. As she gets closer to the truth, she begins to uncover signs that the AI system Victor used may have been manipulated or even influenced by someone else, which introduces a new layer of complexity to the situation, because it suggests that Victor himself may not be the only mastermind behind what is happening. This possibility opens the door to a much larger conspiracy, one that could involve hidden players operating from the shadows for their own unknown reasons. Victor, however, remains outwardly confident, refusing to show any sign of concern even as subtle changes around him begin to indicate that things are not unfolding exactly as planned. Victoria starts to notice these small inconsistencies, and although she continues to support her father, she cannot completely ignore the growing sense that something is off, that there is more to this situation than what they integrity. Billy faces a similar realization, understanding that revenge may feel justified, but it does not guarantee the right outcome, especially in a situation where the truth itself is uncertain. As both men stand on the edge of making their decisions, the pressure surrounding them becomes almost suffocating because they know that there is no safe choice, only different kinds of risks. Phyllis continues to push forward, refusing to be backed into a corner, and as she pieces together more information, she becomes increasingly convinced that exposing the truth is within her reach. But just as she prepares to make her move, an unexpected complication arises, one that threatens to undo everything she has worked for and forces her to adapt quickly or risk losing everything once again. The situation escalates rapidly as secrets begin to surface, alliances begin to shift, and hidden motives start to reveal themselves, creating a chain reaction that no one can fully control. Christine realizes that her window of opportunity is closing and makes a decisive move to secure testimony before it is too late, but whether that move will succeed remains uncertain because Kane and Billy are no longer as predictable as they once were. Victor finds himself facing subtle resistance from directions he did not anticipate, forcing him to adjust his strategy in real time while maintaining the appearance of control. Victoria becomes increasingly aware that the outcome of this battle could have consequences far beyond what they initially imagined, potentially impacting not just their power but their reputation and legacy as well. As everything builds toward a critical turning point, the truth hovers just beneath the surface, waiting for the moment when it can no longer be contained. And when that moment finally arrives, it will not just change the outcome of this case, it will redefine the relationships, loyalties, and power structures within Genoa City in ways that will be felt long after the dust settles, leaving everyone involved to deal with the aftermath of choices made under pressure and the realization that in a world driven by power and control, even the strongest plans can unravel in the face of unexpected truth. And as the final pieces begin to fall into place, one question remains at the center of it: all who will emerge from this battle with their reputation intact, and who will be left to face the consequences of a game that has gone far beyond anyone's control. As the story races toward an explosive climax where every secret matters, every decision carries weight, and the line between victory and defeat becomes thinner than ever before.